Imagine waking before sunrise. There is no alarm beside your bed, no electric light, no warm shower waiting for you, no refrigerator humming quietly in the corner, no soft mattress designed to support your back, no clean tap water, no phone, no internet, no weather app telling you whether you should carry an umbrella. Instead, there is darkness, cold darkness. The room around you is still. The walls are thick, perhaps made from timber, clay, or rough stone. Somewhere beneath you, straw has flattened into a thin and uneven bed. The blanket is heavy, but it is not especially clean. The air smells faintly of smoke. You can hear someone coughing.
Perhaps a child. Perhaps an elderly relative. Perhaps yourself. Outside, a rooster calls from somewhere beyond the walls. It is much too early. But there is no reason to stay in bed. The day has already begun. You sit up. Your feet touch a cold floor. And almost immediately, you understand something. You would not last a day here. Not because medieval people were somehow tougher than you. Not because they possessed a mysterious strength that modern people have lost. But because their entire world was built around difficulties that you rarely have to think about. The cold, the darkness, the mud, the smoke, the hunger, the physical work, the uncertain weather, the lack of sanitation, the absence of modern medicine, the endless small inconveniences that together shaped every hour of life. And perhaps the strangest part is this. Medieval people did not wake up each morning thinking that their lives were unbelievably difficult. This was simply life. They knew nothing else. So tonight, as you settle comfortably into your own bed, with clean water nearby and perhaps a small glowing screen within reach, we are going to travel backward, very slowly. Not toward kings and castles, not toward dramatic battles, not toward famous heroes. Instead, we will follow an ordinary person through an ordinary medieval day. We will wake before sunrise. We will fetch water. We will make breakfast. We will walk through muddy streets. We will work. We will eat. We will worry about the weather. We will visit the market. We will listen to bells. We will return home. And eventually, when the sun disappears and the medieval town becomes quiet again, we will lie down on a bed of straw and cloth and attempt to sleep. There will be no sudden adventures, no great battles, no dramatic speeches, only the slow rhythm of ordinary life. And as you listen, perhaps you will notice something comforting. The medieval world was difficult, but it was also familiar to the people who lived in it. They had routines. They had friendships. They had jokes. They had favorite foods. They had celebrations. They had small pleasures. They watched sunsets. They listened to birds. They sat beside fires. They told stories. And they slept. So make yourself comfortable. Let your shoulders relax. Let the modern world become quieter. And allow yourself to drift backward through the centuries. Tonight, we are going to discover why you probably would not last a single day in medieval times.
A world without convenience. Before we begin our journey, it is worth slowing down for a moment. The word medieval covers a very long period. Historians generally use it for the centuries between the end of the ancient Roman world in Western Europe and the beginning of the early modern period. That means hundreds and hundreds of years. Life in the year 600 was not the same as life in 1200. Life in a wealthy Italian city was not the same as life in a small English village. Life for a merchant was not the same as life for a peasant. Life for a monk was not the same as life for a knight. And life for a noblewoman was not the same as life for a farm laborer. There was no single medieval experience. There were many. But there were also certain things that connected most people. One of the most important was physical effort. Modern life has quietly removed enormous amounts of physical labor from our daily routines. You turn a handle and water appears. You press a button and a room becomes bright. You turn another button and the room becomes warm. You open a door and food waits behind it. You press a key and information travels thousands of miles. You step into a vehicle and cross a distance that once required hours or days of walking. For a medieval person, almost everything required effort. Water required effort. Food required effort. Heat required effort. Clothing required effort.
Travel required effort. Communication required effort. Even cleanliness required effort. And because so much work had to be done by hand, people organized their lives around it. A household was not simply a place where people slept. It was a workplace. A farm was not merely property. It was the source of survival. A kitchen was not simply a room where meals were prepared. It was a place of constant activity. A fireplace was not decoration. It was essential. Light was precious. Fuel was precious. Food was precious. Time itself was measured differently. The medieval day was not divided into neat blocks of appointments and notifications. Instead, life followed the sun, the seasons, church bells, agricultural rhythms, and the needs of the household. Morning came. Work began. The sun climbed. The day continued. The sun descended. Work slowed.
Darkness arrived, and eventually, people slept. It sounds simple, but simplicity is not the same as ease. A life can be simple and still be exhausting. So tonight, we will move slowly through this world. There is no need to rush. There is nowhere we need to arrive. The medieval road itself was slow, and perhaps that is exactly what makes it suitable for sleep.
Before sunrise, the first thing you notice is the cold. Not a dramatic cold. Nothing spectacular. Just the ordinary cold of a room that has been dark for several hours. The fire has gone low. Perhaps someone will rekindle it later. But not yet. For now, you remain beneath the blankets. The bed is made from a wooden frame, or perhaps something much simpler. Straw has been placed inside a mattress cover. The straw is not perfectly smooth. It shifts. It compresses. It becomes hard in some places and soft in others.
There are no modern springs, no memory foam, no carefully designed pillow. The blanket may be wool. It is valuable. It provides warmth. But warmth is not evenly distributed. Your nose is cold, your hands are cold, your feet are cold. Eventually, you get up. There is no bathroom, no private tiled room, no hot water, no flush. Depending on where you live and the resources of your household,
You may use a chamber pot or simply go outside. Privacy is limited. The household is crowded. Several generations may live together. Children sleep nearby. Animals may be kept close to the household as well. In some rural homes, livestock are housed in attached structures or nearby buildings. The boundaries between living, working, and animal spaces can be surprisingly close. You dress. This itself is a process. Clothing is valuable. Fabric requires labor. Wool must be obtained, cleaned, spun, woven, and sewn. Linen requires its own complicated process. Clothes are repaired repeatedly. A tear does not automatically mean replacement. A worn sleeve may be patched. A damaged garment may be altered. An old piece of fabric may become something else. Nothing is casually discarded. You pull on your clothing. There is no synthetic material, no elastic waistband,
No zipper, no machine stitching. Everything depends on natural fibers and human hands. You prepare for the day. And then comes one of the first challenges: water. You need it for drinking. You need it for cooking. You need it for washing. You need it for animals. You need it for countless small tasks. But water does not come from a pipe. Someone has to bring it. Perhaps there is a nearby well. Perhaps a stream. Perhaps a public water source. Perhaps the household has a storage container filled earlier. But if the water source is far away, someone must walk there and then walk back, carrying it again and again and again. The work is so ordinary that it is easy to overlook. Yet modern plumbing has transformed human life more than many people realize. When you turn on a faucet, you are not simply receiving water. You are receiving the invisible labor of an enormous infrastructure: pipes, pumps, treatment systems, reservoirs, engineers, workers, electricity. All of it disappears when you stand at a sink. For the medieval person, water remained visible. You could see the distance between yourself and the source. You could feel the weight of it. You could understand immediately how much work it required. The morning continues. A fire needs attention. Wood or other fuel has to be collected. Someone has to make sure the household has enough. This means forests, fields, carts, tools, and labor. The fire is central to life. It provides heat. It provides light. It cooks food. It helps dry clothing. It creates a place where people gather. But it also creates smoke. And smoke fills enclosed spaces. Imagine living your entire life surrounded by smoke from cooking and heating fires. Your clothing absorbs it. Your hair absorbs it. The walls absorb it. The air itself carries it. Your eyes may sting. Your lungs experience something modern people rarely experience in quite the same way. The fire is necessary, and yet it is also dirty. There is no perfect solution. You need it, so you live with it. Outside, the sky slowly begins to brighten. The medieval morning has arrived. Breakfast before the day begins. Breakfast is not necessarily the elaborate meal you might imagine. For many ordinary people, food is practical. It must provide energy. It must be available. It must not waste precious resources. Bread is extremely important. Grain forms the foundation of much of European medieval life. Wheat, barley, rye, oats. Different regions depend on different grains. Bread can be coarse. It can be dark. It can contain pieces of husk or other material.
For wealthier households, finer white wheat bread may be available. For poorer households, darker breads made from other grains are more common. There is nothing romantic about hunger, and hunger is one of the realities you quickly discover. Modern people often have access to food at almost any hour. You can walk into a kitchen at midnight. You can open a refrigerator. You can order food. You can buy fruit in winter. You can store meat for months. You can choose between dozens of flavors. The medieval person does not have this luxury. Food depends heavily on season. It depends on harvest. It depends on storage. It depends on weather. A bad harvest can change everything. Imagine looking at a field of grain and understanding that your future depends upon it. Not your convenience, not your grocery budget, your survival. If the harvest is good, there may be enough. If the harvest is poor, prices can rise. If several bad seasons follow one another, hunger can become widespread. This uncertainty is always
This uncertainty is always somewhere in the background. But for now, it is morning. Perhaps there is porridge. Perhaps bread. Perhaps cheese. Perhaps a little ale. Perhaps leftovers from the previous evening. In many places, weak beer or ale is common because fermented drinks can sometimes be safer or more reliable than questionable water sources, although the exact relationship between alcohol consumption and water safety varied considerably. The meal is not rushed. There is no need to scroll through a phone. No news notification interrupts breakfast. No email arrives. But that does not mean the morning is peaceful. There is work waiting. If you are involved in agriculture, the fields are waiting. If you are an artisan, the workshop is waiting. If you are a servant, the household is waiting. If you are a merchant, customers are waiting. If you are a child, there are chores. The medieval household is a system. Everyone contributes. Children learn work gradually. They carry things. They fetch things. They help prepare food. They watch younger children. They assist with animals. They learn crafts. They observe adults. There is little concept of childhood as a completely separate world of leisure. Children certainly played. They laughed. They made games. They invented toys from simple materials. But childhood was closely connected to the practical needs of the household. The day moves forward. The fire burns. The bread disappears. The bowls are cleared. And outside.
The road to work. Now you step outside. The first thing you notice is the ground. Depending on the season and location, it may be hard earth, dust, grass, stone, or mud. Especially mud. Medieval streets could become unpleasant places after rain. Drainage systems existed in various forms, and some towns made serious efforts to manage waste and water. But the modern expectation of clean, paved, carefully engineered streets is far removed from much medieval urban life. You walk carefully. There are animals, carts, people, vendors, children, workers, the smell of smoke, the smell of food, the smell of animals, the smell of damp earth, the smell of human activity. The town is not silent. It is alive, and it is noisy. Hammers strike metal. Wheels roll over uneven ground. People call to one another. Animals make their own sounds. A church bell rings. Perhaps another bell answers from farther away. The medieval town is filled with sound. There is no traffic of automobiles, no airplane overhead, no electronic hum. Instead, the soundscape is physical. Wood, stone, iron, hooves,
Voices, bells, fire, water. You walk toward your workplace. Perhaps you are a blacksmith's assistant, perhaps a baker, perhaps a carpenter, perhaps a brewer, perhaps a cloth worker, perhaps a laborer. Your work is repetitive. This is important. Modern people sometimes imagine medieval life as a constant sequence of dramatic events, but most of history was not dramatic. Most people spent most of their time doing ordinary work, again and again and again. A farmer does not wake up wondering whether today will become a historical event. The farmer simply needs to repair a fence. A baker needs to prepare dough. A carpenter needs to shape wood. A washer needs to carry water. A spinner needs to spin thread. A mason needs to move stone. A servant needs to clean. A merchant needs to sell. A child needs to help. The great majority of life is repetition. And repetition is one reason modern people might struggle. Your body is not accustomed to it. Imagine spending hours standing, hours walking, hours lifting, hours bending, hours carrying, hours using your hands. There is no ergonomic office chair, no adjustable desk, no scheduled coffee break designed around workplace comfort. The body simply works. If you are lucky, your work is skilled. Skill matters. A medieval craftsperson could develop remarkable expertise. A blacksmith understood metal. A mason understood stone. A weaver understood threads and patterns. A baker understood temperature and fermentation. A carpenter understood wood. These were not primitive people doing primitive work. They were people working within the technologies available to them. And many of those technologies required impressive knowledge. But knowledge does not remove exhaustion. The morning continues.
The medieval workday. By now, you have been awake for several hours, and the real work has only begun. Consider the farmer. Agricultural labor is controlled by the seasons. Spring brings planting. Summer brings maintenance. Autumn brings harvesting. Winter brings different forms of preparation and survival. But these categories overlap. Animals need care throughout the year. Fences need repair. Tools break. Roofs leak. Firewood must be collected. Food must be preserved. Clothing must be repaired. Nothing maintains itself. Modern life hides maintenance. Your home has electricity. Your water system works. Your heating system works. Your refrigerator works. Your washing machine works. Your transportation works. When something breaks, you call someone. The medieval household is often the maintenance department. You are the electrician, the plumber, the cleaner, the cook, the gardener, the repair person, the fuel collector, the food preserver, the tailor, the person who fixes the roof, and sometimes the person who makes the replacement from scratch. This means the day is full, very full. There are no empty hours in the modern sense. Even rest can contain work. Sitting near a fire might involve spinning wool. Conversation might happen while repairing clothing. Walking somewhere might involve carrying something. Visiting a neighbor might involve exchanging goods or information. Work and leisure are not always separated as sharply as they are today. And yet, people rested. They had quiet moments. They talked. They celebrated. They prayed. They visited. They drank. They sang. They played games. They found ways to enjoy themselves. Human beings always do. But the rhythm is different. The medieval worker understands fatigue intimately. At midday, there may be a meal. It might include bread, pottage, vegetables, beans, peas, cheese, perhaps eggs, perhaps fish, perhaps meat, depending on wealth, location, religious restrictions, and availability. Meat is not automatically present at every meal for everyone. This is another modern assumption worth abandoning. The medieval diet was varied across regions and social classes. People ate what their environment and economy allowed. Fish was important in many places. Dairy products mattered. Grains were essential. Vegetables could include onions, cabbage, leeks, carrots, peas, beans, cheese, and other locally available produce. Fruits were seasonal. Spices existed, but were expensive luxuries in many contexts. Salt mattered enormously. Preservation mattered. Smoking.
Drying, salting, pickling, fermentation. Without modern refrigeration, people had to think constantly about how to keep food edible. And so, after eating, work resumes. The afternoon begins. The medieval bathroom. There is one subject that every journey into medieval life eventually reaches: the bathroom. Or rather, the lack of anything resembling your bathroom. Modern bathrooms are remarkable. You step into a private room. There is clean water, a toilet, soap, a sink, a shower, a mirror, a towel, perhaps warm water, perhaps excellent lighting. It feels ordinary because you see it every day, but historically, it is extraordinary. Medieval people were not universally filthy. This is an important misconception. People washed. People cared about cleanliness. Bathhouses existed in many medieval cities. Private bathing was also possible in some households, depending on wealth and location. People washed hands and faces. They cleaned clothing. They combed hair. They cared about appearance. But hygiene was constrained by technology, fuel, water access, social customs, and local infrastructure. A full bath required effort. Water had to be obtained. Water had to be heated. A container had to be prepared. Fuel had to be burned. Someone had to clean everything afterward. So bathing was not necessarily a 5-minute activity. It was an event. And toilets were another matter. Waste had to go somewhere. Privies existed. Cesspits existed. Chamber pots existed. Urban authorities sometimes created regulations about waste disposal, but the systems were not equivalent to modern sewage networks. This meant that smell was part of everyday life. You cannot completely escape it. Human beings produce smells. Animals produce smells. Fire produces smells. Food produces smells. Leather produces smells. Tanning produces particularly strong odors. Butchers' areas could smell strongly. Markets could smell strongly. Stables could smell strongly. Medieval people did not have the same expectations of odorless environments. Imagine entering a modern city and removing all artificial fragrance. Then remove modern sewage systems. Then remove modern garbage collection. Then add hundreds or thousands of animals. You begin to approach a different sensory world. Not necessarily unbearable, simply different. And this difference matters, because after only a few hours, you would probably begin noticing something else. Your clothes.
They are not fresh. Your shoes are uncomfortable. Your hands are dirty. Your hair feels different. Your body feels tired. And the day is not even finished.
Clothes, shoes, and the problem of being comfortable. Modern clothing is designed for comfort in ways medieval clothing often was not. Not because medieval people did not value comfort. They did. But materials and manufacturing were different. Clothing was expensive. A garment represented labor. Wool had to be obtained. Fibers had to be processed. Thread had to be spun. Cloth had to be woven. The fabric had to be cut. It had to be sewn. Buttons, ties, belts, and other fasteners required additional work. This meant clothing was valuable. A person might own only a small number of garments. The idea of having an enormous wardrobe filled with clothes for every mood would be astonishing. You might have work clothing, better clothing for special occasions, outer garments, underclothing, shoes, perhaps a cloak, and that is enough. Shoes are especially interesting. Imagine walking on medieval roads without modern rubber soles. The ground is uneven. Stone, mud, wood, ice, dust, sharp objects, animal waste. Your feet experience the world directly. Shoes wear out. They must be repaired. Leather is valuable. A wealthy person can replace things more easily. A poor laborer cannot. This difference between social classes appears everywhere. A medieval noble household can be surprisingly comfortable. Large fires, better food, fine textiles, servants, good furniture, travel opportunities, access to skilled craftsmen. A peasant household is another world. So when we say you would not survive medieval life, we need to ask, whose medieval life? If you were transported into the household of a wealthy noble family, your experience would be dramatically different. You might complain about sanitation and heating, but you could sleep in a relatively comfortable bed. You could eat well. You could wear fine clothing. You might have servants to handle many unpleasant tasks. But if you appeared in a poor rural household with nothing except the clothes you were wearing, the experience would be much harsher. And you would immediately discover another problem. You would have no useful skills. You might know how to use a smartphone. You might know how to edit a video. You might know how to navigate the internet. You might know how to use graphic design software. None of those skills would help you repair a wooden plow. None would teach you how to milk a cow. None would teach you how to preserve meat. None would teach you how to spin wool. None would teach you how to identify edible plants. Your knowledge would be strangely disconnected from your environment. You would be educated in one world and suddenly living in another. You would not know what to eat. Imagine entering a medieval kitchen. There are no printed recipes on a screen, no food delivery app, no freezer, no microwave, no electric stove, no supermarket. Cooking is a practical skill, a very important skill. The kitchen may revolve around the hearth. Pots hang above the fire. Wood burns below. Someone adjusts the heat manually. This is not easy. Too much heat can burn food. Too little heat can leave it undercooked. There is no precise temperature display. Cooking depends on experience. A skilled cook learns the behavior of fire. They learn how long something takes. They learn how ingredients change. They learn how to stretch food. They learn how to preserve leftovers. They learn how to feed many people.
Food is often transformed into pottages, stews, soups, breads, roasted dishes, pies, porridges, and other preparations. The medieval kitchen is not necessarily dull. In fact, wealthy households could produce surprisingly sophisticated dishes. Spices such as pepper, ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and other important ingredients could be used by people who could afford them. But for ordinary households, expensive spices were not everyday ingredients. Instead, flavor came from local herbs, onions, garlic, salt, fermented foods, dairy, meat, fish, and whatever else was available. The important thing is that every ingredient represents effort. Take bread. Today, bread seems simple, but imagine making it without a modern bakery. Grain must be grown, harvested, processed, ground into flour. Water must be collected. Dough must be mixed. Yeast or another leavening method must be managed. The dough must rise. The oven must be heated. The bread must be baked. And then the oven must be managed for the next task. Every loaf contains an invisible chain of labor. The same is true for cheese. Milk must come from animals. Animals must be fed. They must be milked. The milk must be
The cheese must be preserved. Nothing is effortless. This changes how people think about food. When food requires work, waste becomes painful. A modern household might throw away leftovers without thinking too much about the labor behind them. A medieval household cannot afford such carelessness. Food is precious. A crumb has value. A damaged loaf may still be used. Bones can flavor broth. Vegetable scraps can become part of another meal. Animal fat can be useful. Everything has a second life. Everything can potentially be market. By afternoon, you may reach a market. Markets are among the liveliest spaces in medieval towns. Here, different worlds meet. Farmers arrive with produce. Merchants display goods. Craftspeople sell objects. Fishmongers offer fish. Butchers sell meat. Bakers sell bread. Brewers sell drink. Cloth merchants display textiles. Spice sellers deal in valuable imported goods. The market is not only a place of commerce, it is a place of information. News travels through markets. A traveler arrives. Someone has heard about a neighboring town. Someone knows that a lord has died. Someone heard about a war. Someone knows that prices are rising. Someone has a story about a strange event. Information moves through people. There is no social media, no newspaper delivered to every home, no television. News travels by mouth. That makes conversation important. Reputation matters. Trust matters. Relationships matter. You cannot simply leave a one-star review and disappear. You live among the people who sell to you. The baker knows customers. The customer knows the baker. The butcher knows families. The merchant knows which customers pay. A community is built from repeated interactions. But markets can also be stressful. Prices change. Supplies change. Weather changes. A poor harvest can affect everyone. A good harvest can bring relief. A shortage of grain can become a serious problem. And money itself is different. Coins have physical value. Transactions can involve barter, credit, obligations, and local customs. For many ordinary people, economic life is not a simple matter of receiving a salary every 2 weeks. It is a complicated network of household production, rents, taxes, labor obligations, purchases, debts, and exchanges. And somewhere in this market, you might notice another thing. People are not constantly miserable. They laugh, they bargain, they gossip, Children run between adults. Someone sings, someone argues, someone tells a joke. Someone is trying to sell something, someone is trying not to buy it. Life continues. This is perhaps the most important thing to remember. Historical people were not living inside museums. They were living. They experienced ordinary boredom, ordinary frustration, ordinary happiness, ordinary hunger, ordinary love, ordinary annoyance. They were people. Bells and time. At some point, a bell rings. You hear it from a church tower. The sound travels through the town. For modern people, time is everywhere. Digital clocks, phones, computers, watches, cars display the time, microwaves display the time. Even appliances sometimes display the time. The medieval world is different. Time can be measured by the sun, by bells, by religious services, by agricultural routines, by mechanical clocks, especially in later medieval Europe, although these were not instantly available everywhere. The church bell is especially important. It marks moments: prayer, services, warnings, celebrations, death, community events. The sound becomes part of the landscape. Imagine living your entire life with bells as one of the major sounds of your day. You do not need to check your phone. The town tells you. The sun tells you. The seasons tell you. The body tells you. There is something strangely peaceful about this. But there is also uncertainty. Night arrives and darkness becomes real. Without electric street lighting, the world changes dramatically after sunset. A modern person can walk through a city at midnight and still see almost everything. A medieval person cannot. The night is darker, much darker. Light comes from candles, lamps, fires, and moonlight. Candles are useful, but expensive compared with modern electric light. Every extra hour of illumination requires fuel. So darkness matters. People naturally organize activities around daylight. This means that the modern habit of working late into the night, watching videos until 2 in the morning, or sitting beneath bright lights at midnight is historically unusual. The medieval night is a different experience. Darkness is not an inconvenience. It is the environment. And perhaps this is another reason you would not last long. You have become accustomed to light. The medieval person has become accustomed to darkness.
The fear of illness. By now, you are tired. But there is another reality you have not yet fully considered: illness. Modern medicine has changed human life profoundly. Vaccines, antibiotics, anesthesia, modern surgery, sterile equipment, diagnostic imaging, blood transfusions, emergency medicine. These things are so familiar to modern people that it can be difficult to imagine a world without them. Medieval people did not have modern medical science. This does not mean they knew nothing about the body. They had physicians, surgeons, midwives, herbalists, apothecaries, medical traditions based on ancient Greek and Roman knowledge, Islamic scholarship, local experience, observation, and religious traditions. Some treatments were useful. Others were ineffective. Some were dangerous. Medical knowledge varied enormously. But one thing remained constant. Infection could be frightening. A wound that seems minor today could become serious. A toothache could become unbearable. A fever could be dangerous. Childbirth could be dangerous. Broken bones could be devastating.
Many conditions we now treat routinely could become life-changing.
This does not mean medieval people spent every waking hour terrified. They adapted. Humans are remarkably good at adapting to their circumstances. Death was more visible. Families could experience loss more frequently. People developed rituals around illness and death. Religion offered explanations and comfort. Communities cared for their sick. Family members helped one another. And life continued. This is one of the quiet paradoxes of history. A society can experience enormous danger and still contain ordinary joy. A mother can fear illness and still laugh with her child. A farmer can worry about harvests and still enjoy a beautiful sunset. A craftsman can know that life is uncertain and still take pride in a perfectly shaped piece of wood. Human beings do not stop living simply because life is difficult. They learn to live inside difficulty.